that preamble my own views on this, but let's just explore that a little bit further. What does any gene do anyway? And this is going to be now the fastest neuroscience course in the country. Yeah? It will last for about 30 seconds. Yeah. Although don't time me, but it's pretty much along those lines. So, okay, you ready for your course? Okay, here we go. So, you can do the same for me one day in art. We'll do the same thing. 30-second course in art. So, here we go. Levels of brain organization. We start with consciousness, which we've already mentioned, this inner world that makes life worth living, that no one else can hack into. This amazing phenomena that we take so much for granted. When consciousness goes wrong, we talk about depression or schizophrenia or anxiety, and these are syndromes. That's to say they are umbrella words for a whole constellation of problems and impairments in what we could call mental functions. Mental functions such as language, memory, vision, the kind of things that you see as a single unitary concept. But you would be wrong, because something like vision, let's take something like vision, which I'm sure you think of as a single thing, a single phenomenon, in brain terms is divvied up into, in the case of vision, as many as 30 different brain regions. And you may not be aware that the way vision works in the brain is that colour and form and motion are all processed separately, and by a way that we do not understand, don't let anyone tell you understand, the so-called binding problem, somehow they all come together to give you a cohesive whole. Now we know this happens because of really interesting cases of stroke. One particular one in Germany, a Frau L, who had a stroke, so she could see colour and form in the normal way, but she couldn't see motion. Can you imagine not seeing movement? Not being aware of movement. It means you can't pour out a cup of tea, you can't cross the road, across the cars. And very, very frightening experience, and we can only hazard what she must have been going through. Anyway, these so-called sub-functions, let's take the example of vision, are divided up among, in the case of vision, 30 different brain areas. So it is not the case that you have one brain area, one function. You don't have the centre for this and the centre for that. You certainly do not have the centre for creativity in the brain, any more than you have the centre for good housekeeping. Okay, so brain regions then are like instruments more in an orchestra. That's to say, any one brain region will participate in a whole range of functions, and any one function is divvied up among a whole host of brain regions. So you can't have a one-to-one correspondence. There's a convergence and a divergence. Now, if you take one of these brain regions apart, then you'll have what I call assemblies, very large-scale coalitions of brain cells. And if you pull it apart further, you'll get isolated circuits of brain cells, or neurons. I'm sure you're familiar with that term. And if you take things about still further, in a really destructive mood, then you get the basic working unit of the circuit, which is actually a gap between one brain cell and another. I'm sure most people have heard of the term synapse. And the way one brain cell communicates with another across this little gap is to release a chemical messenger, a transmitter, which then shakes hands in a molecular handshake with the next cell along, and then that releases the next signal. We won't go into too much detail, but in order for this little chemical messenger, the transmitter, to go across the little gap, a whole load of biochemical baggage is required, large molecules, proteins, that will enable this transmitter to be made, released, and then removed from the site of the action. And all that biochemical chicanery is activated by genes. That is the end of the course. Okay, now you can see, I hope, how crazy it would be to ignore this nested hierarchy and to jump from a gene up to consciousness or from a gene to creativity. You have to literally put genes in their place, literally. I'm not saying they are not important, they are utterly necessary. When they go wrong, you have terrible diseases. But on the other hand, the link between the terrible disease or the function is most usually very, very indirect. And you need many genes contributing in ways that we poorly understand, going up through this nested hierarchy in order to see a link. Now, to just ram home that idea of how indirect gene activation is to final brain function, I love showing this picture of a Rube Goldberg creation. It's a self-opening umbrella, which, as its name suggests, opens automatically when it rains. You don't need your hands to do this, but there is a high price to pay. You have this strapped on you. So let's just walk through. Now, the metaphor I'm trying to sell you is that the rain falling is like activation of a gene. The umbrella opening is like consciousness. And now that you are experts in neuroscience, you can, I hope, see the correspondence of the hierarchy. So let's go.